So when I was 13 or 14 years old or so, I lived in a super small town in Kansas, population 2,100 or so, and there was not much to do, so I was really lazy and I usually stayed inside or played video games or was on my computer or whatever. I had a closer group of friends who was really active. They liked doing pretty much everything. And one day, one friend comes to my apartment, sort of the leader of our group, comes to our apartment, or my apartment, and he was on his bike, and he's like, "Hey, Tarango, you want to go for a bike ride?" "Sure, okay, I'll go for a bike ride." And I go to the front of my apartment, I get my bike, and like I said, he rode his there, and we start riding our bikes for a little bit. And we end up at this south exit of town, and I know exactly where the south exit of town leads. It can only go one of two places. Really small town, not too far away, or straight to the Oklahoma state line, which was 20, 30 miles away. And he's like, "You want to ride your bikes to our bikes to Oklahoma?" And like, fuck that, I'm out, I'm gonna go home. So as I'm preparing to turn around, it took him about 10 minutes of convincing to convince me to, to get me to go. So fine, okay, whatever. We're going down this super bumpy, long dirt road, and it's just agony. I didn't want to be there. I was like, what can we do to make this go by faster? He's like, let's just talk to each other. Once you start doing something and occupying your mind, you forget you're riding a bicycle. Okay, fine. So we start bullshitting for, I don't know, a while. And eventually we come to this really big, really long chain link fence. And we see multiple no trespassing signs, but who has time to read when you're being an asshole? There's this big tear in this big chain link fence, and it's like, okay, let's crawl into it. So we stop our bikes on one side, we crawl into this big chain link fence. And on this side, there's like a big wooded area, and way on this other side, we see the ranch or farm or whatever that this belongs to. We ignore the house and we go into this wooded area. And in this wooded area, we explored around, and it was really fun. We were in there for maybe an hour or so. And I'd like to say we did something cool. We were in there, like we tamed a wolf or something. But in reality, we heard like one thing make a noise and left like little pansies. We got back on our bikes and we continued down this dirt road. And another, hour elapsed maybe, and I'm super bored and I wanted to go home. However, we were probably already 10 plus miles into this bike ride, and turning home would probably be kind of counterproductive. So we keep going, and eventually I turn left, and there's this really, really big sunset. And I don't know if you've ever been to Kansas or if you know anything about Kansas, but it's super flat. Even the hill areas are flat. So there's nothing to obstruct this sunset as it's coming down, and as it gets closer to this horizon, it starts casting off big beams of sunlight. It's huge, right? It looks enormous, and it's painting the clouds purple and yellow and orange and red, and it was great. It was beautiful. It was awesome. It looked like a sunset or a sun that you draw when you're in kindergarten. And if it were any cooler, it would have had big shades like you also put on the sun when you're in kindergarten. And I admired this sunset for, I don't know, it had to be 40 minutes to an hour, until eventually Robert to my right, he's like, "Hey, Tarango, look at this." And then I turn and there's this big green sign, "Welcome to Oklahoma." We had made this 30 plus mile bike ride, and it's wow, great. So we both feel super accomplished, and we take pictures with this sign with our bikes and everything. We're gonna show it to our friends, we're so cool. And so cool, we start going back, we turn back around, and we get, I don't know, maybe 5 miles back, we're closer to home, and we see this car coming, and there's a truck behind it. Whatever, other cars and trucks and whatever had passed us while we were going. But as they get closer, they stop, and the lights flash on top of this car. And it's it's a cop, "Goodbye, we're dead." It's "I'll see you in hell, Robert, goodbye." So as they both stop, this cop gets out of this car, he's get to the side of the road. Okay, fine. He tells us it's illegal to ride your bicycles past sunset without lights on them, so okay, fine, we're not gonna die or go to prison. I'd never seen cops before. Anyway, so he puts our bikes in the back of this truck, and we get in this car, and he takes us home. About 15 minutes, most nervous car ride of my entire life. I wanted to pee my pants the entire time. I was like, okay, my mom's gonna kill me. I'm dead. She sees this cop car, I'm dead. But anyway, he takes us home. I get to the front of my apartment, and I get help pulling my bike out of the back of this truck, and I pull it to the front of my apartment, go inside, and I went to sleep that night, super exhausted and super fulfilled. And I realized that sunset is something that I gained, and so was feeling accomplished from taking that bike ride. And I went to bed feeling super, super awesome. And yeah.